Welcome to Module 9 of the Excel training program. This is more functions and formulae. We're going to be looking at naming cells and ranges, some common worksheet errors, how to display and print formulae, how to use the count and count A functions, and using the if function. In Excel, it's possible to give one cell a name or a whole range of cells a particular name. Let's see what we can do here. For example, let's go to C1 here. Okay, this is going to be a bonus for the sales on these regions, but we can give it a name such as bonus. Notice here in the name box here that it's saying C1. I'll just select that and type bonus and then hit return. When we're naming cells or ranges, we shouldn't use spaces, although you could use the underscore if you wanted a space, for example. Okay, but we'll take it out for now and hit return. Okay, I'll click away from that cell now. If I click back to it, it's still C1, but it's named as bonus. We'll go to the regions here, north, south, east and west. We'll just select those. And again, I'm going to name these regions. Remember, no spaces, and I'll hit return. Click away. There's still cells A4 to A7, but as a range or group of cells, they're known as regions. This will become clearer when we work with formula. If we go to our formula tab on our ribbon here and go over to defined names, if I click on the name manager here, I can see that the two names that I've given to the two ranges or cells in the case of bonus are now defined, and I'd be able to edit these or even delete them from here. Okay, so we'll just close that, and you can also define a name from here as well, like so. I could give it another name here for a different range once I've got the cells selected to show which cells that I'm including in this named range. I'll cancel that. Now this is a very small worksheet here. I don't have a lot of data here, but if it was much larger and I wanted to find a particular named range, I could go to my home tab and then go to my find and select and then go to, and let's say I want to find bonus, and of course I could click on the word bonus here at the top here and just go OK. It will find that cell or range of cells for me. We'll just have a look at the name manager here once more. Just click on name manager here and it shows us our named ranges or cells. Remember, bonus was just one cell, and it refers to regions, which is the name of the worksheet, and it's an absolute reference $C, $1. Okay, we'll just close that. We'll just do another one here. We'll say select all the sales here. Okay, and I could go up to the name box and type in a name here, or I could go to my formula tab and define name. So I'll just define name, and yes, a good name for this would be sales, and it's referring to the regions $B, $4 to $B, $7. These are absolute references, and I'm in column B, so we'll just go OK to that. Okay, click away from it. If I want to go and find these on a much larger worksheet, I'll go to my find and select, go to, and I want to find sales. Click on sales, go OK, and it highlights them for me. If I wanted to delete the name of a range, I'll just go back to name manager, and let's just say I'll take out bonus here, and I can delete it from here. And I'm sure I want to delete the name bonus. I'm not deleting the cell, just the name for that particular cell. I won't in this case, but if I wanted to, I just go OK. And I'll close that again. So how would these named ranges work? Let's say we want to put in a total here, Okay, I'm going to do this by hand rather than using the auto sum. Okay, so I'll go equals. Every formula begins with an equal sign. SUM for sum. It doesn't matter if it's upper or lowercase. And then I need an open bracket. And then I need my first cell in the range, which in this case is B4. I can select B4 all the way down to B7, but I'm going to type it in anyway. So I'll type B4 and it highlights that cell for me. I'll put in a colon now, and my last cell that I want to include in this formula is B7, so I'll type in B7, and that's selected the whole range of values there. And very important, I just need to close off the formula with a closing bracket, and then I'll hit return. Now, we already gave these values a name. If I just select them here, they're called sales. So I'll just go back to my formula here, and I can see in my formula bar I have, as I typed, equals sum, open bracket, B4 colon to B7, close bracket. But instead what I'm going to do is just delete this formula. So I'll just delete that and go back to the cell. And now I'm going to type equals sum, open bracket, sales, close bracket. And I get my total again, but my formula this time reads equals sum, open bracket, sales, which is the name of the range, close bracket. A very common error when creating formulae is forgetting the equals sign. If I just go up to my formula here, if I were to delete this equals sign, I'm going to get just the text without the formula. So, very important, when you're creating any formula, equals must go first. Another common error is forgetting the parentheses or brackets. Say, for example, I took out the bracket here, the opening bracket, and then hit return. Oh, we've got a problem. Okay. So let's make sure we get that right and click back just after sum and put in an opening bracket. Hit return and our formula is now correct. There are other errors we could make, and we'll be looking at them in more detail further along this course by using formula auditing up here, especially the error checking here. But we'll come to that later. Just remember that a formula always needs an equal sign at the beginning, and the range or a named range must be in brackets or parentheses. If you ever want to see the formulas that are in your worksheet, just go above the error check in there to show formulas, and that will show your formulas here. Notice how in C1 here that was 10% but is just showing as 0.1. That's how Excel shows percentages. Okay, we'll just go back to our regular view here by clicking Show Formulas again. Just to emphasize that, I'm just going to switch to another worksheet I have open here. So I'll just go to my view and switch windows to another worksheet I've got here. Here, if I wanted to show the formulas, I go to my Formula tab and go Show Formulas. Notice how it expands the columns out much wider. What I would suggest you would do is, if you want just one worksheet showing formula, is to create a copy of it. So I'll just go back to my original view here, and remember how to copy a worksheet is to right click on its tab, go to Move or Copy. I'm going to move this to the ends. Don't forget to tick Create a Copy, then go OK. There's my copy down the bottom here, and I'm just going to name that Formula. Now I just click into my worksheet here and go Show Formula. Okay, I'll probably want to zoom out so I can see everything here and maybe narrow down the columns, but I can see all my formula here. And if I want to print this, I could just go to File and then Print. I've got this set for landscape and to fit sheet on one page, and that would be ready to print with all the formula. Making a copy of a worksheet and naming it formula is only an option, just it might be useful for you. I'll just go back to my original worksheet that I was working with, regions. I'll just switch windows here, and I'll show the formula here by going up to formulas and go show formulas, and I'll go file print. Okay, I probably need to zoom in that a little bit closer so we can see. But as you can see here, there's only one formula anyway. And we'll just go back to our worksheet from that. And we'll bring back our normal view. You can of course make changes while you're in formula view. If you go back to formulas here, if I wanted to change anything in the formula here, that would be fine. Any of the labels or data values, they can be changed as well, and that will be reflected in your original view. However, if you're making a copy, then you would need to make the changes in the copy as well. I'll just put this back to normal view, like so. You may remember we looked at the count formula earlier on in the previous module. For example, if I just wanted to know how many values were here in this range here, I can see it's 4, but if I just change the formula here to equals count, open bracket, and then I can type in the values or select them. I'll select them, and I'll just remember to close off the bracket. Notice that this is a named range called sales. Hit return, and I've got 4 values here. If I took one of the values out, let's take south out, just delete that, I've only now got 3 values. I'll just Control Z to undo that to bring it back to where we were. Now suppose I wanted to make a count of the number of regions here. That's to say this area here. Okay, my count formula is not going to work for that. If I go equals count, open my bracket, and my first cell is A4, then a colon for the range, and my last cell here is A7, and close the bracket. What I'm going to get is a result of 0, because there are no values in those 4 cells in that range of cells. What I need to do if I want to count up labels, which is what these are, I'll just put an A after the count and hit return, and that indicates that I have 4 labels or 4 regions in this range that we already named regions. If I go back to that cell here in the formula, and instead of A4 to A7, I'll just select A4 to A7. I can leave my brackets there and type regions and hit return. I get 4 again. Just go back to the formula there, count A regions, there are 4 of them, and obviously if I took one of them out, south again, I'm down to 3 again. Control Z to undo that, like so. A very useful function in Excel is the if function. Let's just say here that if the sales for any of the regions are greater than 25, let's say, they'll get a bonus of 10%. We want our answer here for the bonus in cell C4. There are a couple of ways I can bring up the if function. It happens to be a logical function, so I could go to if here, or I could go to the fx on insert function, or my fx here, insert function. So I'll click that, I'll type if, and then click go, and there it is. So that's my function. I can actually double click on the if, but I'll just go OK. Now what's happening here is if the sales for the north are greater than 25, and yes, they're not, but if they were, they would get a bonus of 10%. So we need to create the function from start. So B4 is our first entry. So if B4 is greater than, so we want our greater than symbol on the keyboard. If it's greater than 25, what's going to happen if that is true? Okay, so we'll click into the next bar here. Well, what will happen is that the value in B4, which is 20, so we'll type B4 again, gets multiplied by, which is our asterisk, so shift and 8, gets multiplied by C1. And I'm actually going to make a little error here and show you why this error is important, but I'm just going to type in C1 for the moment. Now what happens if it's not true, which in the case of north it's not true? What happens is nothing. They don't get a bonus, so 0. Okay, so we'll go OK to that. And of course north does not get a bonus because they're not greater than 25. But if I just change that to 30 and hit return, they get a bonus of 3 because 3 is 10% of 30. Now I want to relative copy this formula down through the rest of the regions, and we'll see here in a moment the mistake I've made on purpose. I'll just run down to the next 3 cells and let go. Okay, there's something wrong here. Surely the West would not get a bonus of 105 if they only made sales of 35. Let's have a look at the South. Let's have a look at the formula here. If B5 is greater than 25, B5, correct, then B5 itself gets multiplied by C2. No, there's nothing in C2. What's wrong here is I need an absolute reference. So I go back to cell C4 here. My C1, my 10%, is an absolute reference. Wherever I go, I need to refer to that cell. So either I can just select the C1 and hit my function key F4, and that will put a dollar in front of the C and a dollar in front of the 1. I could have just typed the dollars as well. I'll hit return now. Now I'll go back to my cell C4 and relative copy them down through the regions. And now it changes. I can see that the West is now 3.5, which is correct. And if I look at my formula here, if B7, correct, B7 is greater than 25, then B7 gets multiplied by $C, $1, which is the absolute reference. And if they got less than 25, it would be 0. So we'll just do all that again, and this time we'll be aware of the absolute reference. So I'll just delete my contents here, go back to my cell C4, and we'll do the if function again, bearing in mind that C1, our bonus, is an absolute reference. So we'll go insert function. I want an if function again, so I go OK. So if B4, so B4, because that's the value for north, if that is greater than 25, what happens, if that's true, is that B4 gets multiplied by shift and 8. Now, not C1, but $C, $1. I can type C1 and select it and hit F4 again, but I'll just type the dollar signs in. $C for the column, $C for the row. And remember, if there is no value greater than 25, then they don't get a bonus, so 0 if it's false. So we'll go OK to that. And we'll just look at our formula here in the formula bar. Yes, if B4 is greater than 25, which it happens to be in this case, then B4 itself gets multiplied by C1 or $C$1 because it's an absolute reference. I'll just copy them down again, relative copy them down for the next three regions, and I'll just go back to north, and we'll just bring that back to below 25 so they don't get a bonus, like so. Now I use the formula with $C$1 as the absolute reference, but do you remember we named this cell bonus, didn't we? So I'll just go back to cell C4, and instead of the $C$1, I'll just select that there and just type in bonus and then hit return. I'll just go back to that cell so we can read the formula. If B4 is greater than 25, then B4 gets multiplied by the bonus, and if it's not, they get 0. Okay, so we'll relative copy that down and we'll get the same results. I'll just check in west here, and bonus has kept the absolute reference. Let's just say as well that the bonus changes to say 20%, and then hit return. You can see here that the regions that do get a bonus have doubled their bonus to 20%. Let's just say as well that they would get the bonus if their sales were 25 or greater. So if we'd said greater than 25, they're going to get the bonus if it's 26 or beyond, but not if it's 25. We'll just test that. We'll just go to north and give them 25. They still don't get a bonus. So we'll go back to our cell reference C4 and we'll make a few changes here. I'm just going to select everything here and delete them, or clear the contents like so. So there'll be a slight change in our if formula here. Let's go through this carefully. So I want an if function here again, so I'll go insert function. There's my if function here. If I didn't see it, I could just type it here, and I can just click on it and go OK. I'll double click it this time. So our logical test then this time is if B4, that's the value for the north sales, so B4 greater than or equal to 25. Notice that the equal sign went after the greater than. What happens if that is true is that B4 itself gets multiplied by, okay, we could type in $C$1 here, but we already have named this cell bonus, and then I click into the third bar. I can use my tab key for that, and I'll just type in a 0 there and go OK. And yes, this time north does get a bonus of 5, which is 20% of 25, and I'll relative copy that down just to test our absolute reference. And here we can see that east is the only one that does not get a bonus because they do not have 25 or greater. We'll just test that. We'll just give them 24 for the moment. Still no bonus. 25. Now they get a bonus, as they would have done if they'd have got 26 or beyond. Okay. If we say as well that the bonus is going to change, let's say we'll bring it down to 15%. So I'll just type in 15 into cell C1 and hit return. Everybody's values we're going to change. Everybody's above 25. We'll just bring North down to 24 so they don't get a bonus. And to just tidy things up here, we'll just select our values here, format the cells to 2 decimal places, I think. So we go number, 2 decimal places, OK, like so. OK, what we'll do now is we'll have a look at what we've just covered there with a little bit more data. So I'm going to go and switch windows here to the other workbook I have open, International Sales. So I'll just choose that. We've got a bit more data here. We'll just have a look and see what's going on here. Here's the VAT or sales tax at 21%. And this is going to be an absolute reference cell. This is cell B2. We could name this, couldn't we? It's VAT. Hit return. Then if I go down to cell H20, what's happening here is that H19, which is our total retail, sitting in H19 here, gets multiplied by the VAT, which is in B2, and it's an absolute cell reference. I could actually select that and type VAT instead as well, and let's do that. So we'll just select $B, $2 and type VAT and hit return, and nothing's changed. But if I just go back to the cell here, H20, I can see the formula is H19 times VAT. If we go back to our cell B2 here, and let's just say that the VAT gets reduced to say 18%, and then hit return. Just keep an eye on what's going on in H20 here. When I hit return, our VAT is now changed. What's going on here as well is we've got a discount of 10% if the average is greater than 20. You can see here that Canada, Belgium and Japan and Germany are below 20, so they do not get a discount. If I go into my cell here, I6, and have a look at the cell formula, equals if D6, which is where the average is greater than 20, what happens is that G6, that's the total cost here, gets multiplied by $C $3, which is this value. I could also, of course, name that discount if I wanted to, and if they don't get greater than 20, they get no discount. I'll just explain what we've got here is that, for example, the US of A has got 25 branches, they've got 856 orders, their average is C6 divided by B6, that's to say the number of orders divided by the number of branches. So they have an average number of orders of 34.2 per branch. The cost of the product or service, whatever, is 54. It retails at 165. So we'll just go through these here. 54 is our cost, 165 is our retail. So our total cost, as we see in the formula bar here, is C6 multiplied by E6. So that's C6, which is the orders, multiplied by the E6, which is our total, which is our cost for that particular product or service. Our total retail, if we click in there, our formula is C6 times F6, which is our orders again, but multiplied by the retail price this time. And as already explained, if they have an average of greater than 20, they will get a discount of 10%. And of course, I can go to this discount and change the 10% to say 12%. So I'm just going to edit the formula here rather than have to type the percentage sign in again. And you'll notice there that all the discounts have changed. And we'll just say that we just want to change this slightly so that the discount would apply if they did get an average of 20 rather than it being greater than, so equal to or greater than. Okay, I'll just hit return because that's not in the formula here. So let's go over to our discount formula here, which is in I6. We can see that if D6, which is our averages, is greater than 20, then G6, which is our total cost, gets multiplied by $C $3, which is our discount. And of course I could have named that discount as well. And if they don't get greater than 20, they do not get a discount. But let's say we want to include branches which would hit the 20, so I'll just click in after the greater than symbol and type an equal sign and then hit return. Now that doesn't affect the USA discount, but I need to now relative copy that formula because I've changed it. So I'll copy that all the way down here. Okay, there's no changes here because there are no branches which have got exactly 20. While we're on this workbook, we'll just recap on the count formula. Remember that the count formula only counts up the number of values. The count A formula counts up the number of labels. So if I put in a count formula here, equals count, open bracket, and then select all the branches, and then close off my bracket. That gives me 13 branches. It's not counting up the sum of the branches. If I wanted to do that, I'd need to change the formula from count to sum. So we'll just do that and hit return. And there's 95 branches in total. Suppose I want to count all the countries. In fact, let's give them a name. So we'll select all the countries, go up to my name box and just type in countries and then hit return. That range is now called countries. Now I don't use the count formula here. If I want to count up the number of countries here, I'll use the count A. So I'll go equals count A, open bracket, and of course I could select the cells, but I've already given this range a name of countries. So I'll just type that in, close my bracket, hit return, and there are 13 countries. Hopefully from this module you should be able to see how important or useful the if formula is. We'll just click into cell C4 here. If you have a value that's going to change constantly, for example the 10% here, we'll just change that to say 30% for example. All we need to do is just change that one cell and everything else will get reflected. Hopefully too you can see the importance of naming a range of cells like we did with the regions here. And I could name the cells like so. And I can also go to my name manager and edit or delete or even create a new name for this particular range. I can call it cells 2, even though it's the same thing really. This refers to equals regions asterisk, which refers to the worksheet itself, $B, $4 to $B, $7, which are absolute references on these 4 cells. So I've now actually got 2 names for the same range. So for example, if I wanted to put in another formula here, let's go for a sum formula. So I'm just going to take all of this out. Remember, every formula begins with an equal sign, so equals sum, open bracket, sales 2, close bracket, hit return, and that gives me the total for all the sales. Because this range was named sales 2 and is also called sales as well. If that is confusing, just go to the name manager and we'll say delete sales 2, but beware, our formula here is based on this. We'll delete it anyway and see what happens. So we'll delete it, and we're going to delete the name. Okay, and close. Now we have a problem here because when we go into our cell here, it doesn't recognize this formula anymore because we don't have a named range called sales 2. So I'll just take the 2 out, hit return, and that fixes it. And here's the exercise for module 9. If this seems a little daunting, you can just create your own figures like we did there with the regions. But we'll go through this anyway and see what the questions are. First of all, define a name for the range of countries. Then define a name for the VAT rate. Create a count A formula in any cell for the number of countries. In cell H20, create a formula for the total VAT. In cell I6, create a formula for discount based on the averages and change the VAT rate to 17.5%, and watch how all your values change, assuming you've got everything right. If you want to know the solution, we'll go ahead here now. If not, look away now. Okay, in the questions there we asked you to define a name for the range of countries, so we selected all the countries and then just gave it the name countries. Same with the VAT. I click into the 17.5% here. I've named this VAT underscore rate. Remember, you can't use spaces in names. With the count A formula you could put in a label total countries here, and in this cell for example you can create the formula which will be equals count A and in brackets countries, but you could have also used the cell references from A6 down to A18 as well. The VAT over here in H20, we click into there, we can see that this is H19, which is our total retail, multiplied by $B $2, which is our VAT rate, and of course I could have used the name VAT underscore rate as well. The next question was, in cell I6, create a formula for discount based on the averages. So let's see how we did that. We'll just go to I6 here and have a look at the formula. The formula in the formula bar here is equals if, open bracket, D6, which is the average for the USA, if that's greater than 20, what happens if it's true is that G6, which is the total cost, gets multiplied by the discount, which is in cell C3. We could also have given that a name as well. And the third part of the argument is what happens if it's less than 20 is they do not get a discount. For example, Ireland here is on 20 as an average, but if we'd have changed the formula so that it was equals or greater than, just type an equals in there and then hit return, and then don't forget to relative copy down, And now Ireland should get a discount. Just relative copy them all down. And Ireland gets a discount of 216. And then the final question is, change the VAT rate to 17.5% or 17.5%. Excel doesn't really recognize the half symbol, so you need to specify that as 17.5. I'll just give you a little tip here as well. When you change that to 17.5, you're going to need to format the cell to at least one decimal place, because if you don't, it will just show 18 like so, which of course is not correct. Anyway, have a go with that and best of luck. I'm sure you'll pick it up in no time. And that concludes Module 9, More Functions and Formulae, where we named cells and ranges, looked at some basic common worksheet errors, looked at displaying and printing formulae, using the count and count A functions, and using the if function. Thanks very much for watching.